So good evening. Good evening. This is the IUB 21st Century Scholars Program Fall 2022 Senior Scholar Meeting. My name is Vincent Isom. I'm the director of the 21st Century Scholars Program. And I'd first like to begin by congratulating you on being seniors and looking at the end of the pathway, real close to graduation.
All right, good evening, folks. My name is Jen Berry. I'm the Assistant Director of 21st Century Scholars. I also advise STEM students. And I'm really glad to see so many familiar faces. When we do these meetings, it helps me to put in perspective where you all are in your journey. And so some names, I'm like, gosh, we're already at senior year. So that's pretty cool to see you all. So hopefully we have some good information for you this evening that will be helpful as you round out the rest of your journey. So as soon as I figure out, can you all see the screen, the PowerPoint? Yes, okay. All righty. So this is our agenda for the evening. We'll talk about how do you maximize the remaining time that you have here at IU. How should you close out your senior year? What are some things that you, need to do? What does spring semester of your senior year look like? Because we get a lot of questions about how to set up your schedules and make sure that your money doesn't get funny. And then we'll have a Q&A. All right, so couple things that you may have heard us talk about throughout your time here at IU, but it's important for us to kind of drive the point home, but also make sure you have some nuggets to take with you. Because these are things that aren't just while you're in college. So you should have a mentor or several mentors that have formed a community for you while you're here, because whom you know really does matter. So it's important for you to connect with professionals, academics, and peers in your field, because once you all make that next move, you will be the professionals in your field and doing more training. And so it's good to have networks with people throughout different industries who are doing different things, because that's kind of what happens in the professional world. And so some ways to do that while you're still here. Attend events that are sponsored by your academic department, by your major and your minors. Even if you're not doing that major, going to lots of speeches, lectures, and things that happen. Sometimes there's food and various things that happen across the university. And getting in the last visits with faculty, because again, these are folks who are professionals in your field. And you do want to make those contacts and solidify those relationships before you make your next move, because you will be working with them at some point, whether it's directly or indirectly. So getting engaged, not just as far as networking and building your people connections only, but also building yourself beyond GPA. So having a good GPA is important, and it's good to finish strong, but that's not the only piece about college that matters. And sometimes GPA isn't as strong as maybe we want it to be. And so there's things that you can do that help to strengthen your profile. So that means that if your GPA isn't where you want it to be, it doesn't mean that all is lost and that there's no opportunities for you. It means that you have to build your profile differently. And those who do have strong GPAs, it means that isn't the only piece that makes you strong. And so you need to make sure that you are networking and then getting engaged in actual activities. So it's not too late to join organizations, volunteering in the community, getting a job on campus, preferably, or in the community. Again, attending lectures and workshops and conferences. There are a lot of conferences that happen on campus with some really dynamic people from across the world who come to speak, and you don't have to pay. And becoming a leader. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're the president of an organization, but it means that you are taking the lead in something, on something, and brushing up those skills and making sure that you're confident in your leadership skills before you move on.
So I'm going to talk about career preparation. If you recall, there was a document that we provided you called the Roadmap to Success. If you look at that QR code with your phones, that is the link to the Roadmap to Success. And it outlined some things you should be doing before your senior year and some things that you should be doing during your senior year. So I don't want you to forget about that resource. It's on our website as well as in the QR code that you have here that can help you. So hopefully you have done the following. If you haven't, there's still time. Connected with a career coach. As a thumbs up, use your thumbs up button on your, have you connected with your career office in your school or a career coach? Just hit the thumbs up icon. Or just, if you don't have the icon available because you're on your phone, just raise your hands. Good, good, good. If you haven't done so, it's important that you do so. We want to make sure you're positioning yourself for the best possible outcome and aware of the resources that are there, because there's some impressive resources that some of these offices have. How many knew that you could do an internship over the break with a legitimate corporation, get a credential, a certificate of completion for the project, and it's a part of your resume. So there's things and programs like that that's out there to look into. Again, whether it's Walter Center, the Walter Center has a wonderful wealth of resources. Plug, deadline today, tomorrow at the latest, but today, if you want to go on a wonderful, intensive career fair in Washington, D.C., I have some reserved slots for those in the College of Arts and Sciences. It occurs over spring break. But the process and the application process is due now. They have funding for 21st Century Scholars. There's still a couple slots available. So if you're within the College of Arts and Sciences and you want to go, if you want to go to see the many public, private corporations and opportunities within Walter Center, within Washington, D.C. or nationwide, because it doesn't mean you have to be in Washington, D.C. This is one you don't want to miss. It's 4 days, 3 nights. I think 4 days, 3 nights, or reverse. Yeah, it's 4 days, 3 nights of activities. So, and going to different companies, being surrounded by tons of alum, and them sharing opportunities. So don't miss out. Keep reading your newsletter so you're aware of these opportunities. Attend a career fair. Make sure you attend a career fair. It's important, again, not only for the act of seeing what's there. If you already have something, that's okay. The main thing is cultivating your soft skills, because that's what employers are saying about graduates from colleges these days. They don't have the soft skills. They have the academic backgrounds, but they don't have the soft skills to engage in a work environment and the interpersonal skills to cultivate the necessary relationships. And they may be nervous about a professional environment. So you want to put yourself in a professional environment now by attending some of these, having some conversations, and learning about that environment prior to your immersion in the environment. Keep your resume up to date. Make sure that you're thinking about all those things that make you a good applicant. You know, again, going to your faculty that are in those areas, making sure that they see a resume, they can look at your resume, and they can ask, you know, can share what you may want to add to your resume, particularly for those looking into grad school. Have you done a job shadow or information interview? If you haven't for the career area that you're interested in, make sure you take the opportunity to use those resources at the career fair or personal resources, I mean, not career fair, career center, or those resources that are personal to you. You know someone that works in the area that you want to go into, having a call with them to have that conversation. What are you doing after graduation? What plans do you have? This is a big question. You should have options in mind, even lined up at this point. If you don't reach out to get things started, that's going to be challenging. You don't want to wait until the last moment to get engaged. So with that in mind, we're going to have an opportunity for you to tell us with a link that we'll provide for you. Tell us, what are your post-graduation plans? So if you could, use this QR code and complete this brief survey so that we can get an understanding of where you're at in the process. And I want to re-emphasize, if you aren't at a point where you have solid plans yet, it isn't too late. Again, reach out to us if you don't know where to start, or if you want to look at some connections of some opportunities that we may know of, reach out to us. Of course, we already mentioned your career fair, the career center. I keep going to career fair, but there are career fairs that will be happening during the spring, but reach out to your career centers as well. But we want to make sure that you're assisted, you have the assistance that you need, and you're assisted in reaching the outcome that you want. And if that means gaining some confidence in taking the steps that you need to take, we're here. If that means you're already out there doing what you need to do, that's great too. We just want to know where you are in your journey. And then when we talk about the journey, I'm going to pause for a minute and let Jen share a little bit about her journey, what her journey looked like.
All righty. So let me pop here in the chat first the link to the survey you all can do for your post-graduation activities. So some of you all might remember, I'm actually from Washington, D.C. So the D.C. trek trip that Mr. Isom just talked about is a great opportunity, not just because I'm trying to sell the city, but to go to Washington, D.C. and to see the city, but also to see all of the organizations and businesses that come together for this kind of like 3D career fair. Is a great opportunity, and you never know what other kinds of networks that you're going to get. And so again, 3 days, 4 days, 3 nights in DC, like with funding, that means there's money available.
Right. The hotel cost is covered. The stay is covered.
So I actually went to undergrad in DC at American University, and when I graduated, and it didn't take me 4 years after I graduated. As I approached junior year, I really didn't know what I was going to do. And that was kind of a little bit late. But I started thinking about graduate school, but I didn't know what I wanted to study. But I was majoring in sociology, and I was like, well, I like this, so let's keep going. And so I came here to IU Bloomington for a master's and PhD program in sociology. And I still didn't know what I wanted to do with sociology. I knew I liked it. I knew I was good at it, but I did not know what kinds of jobs or anything. I was in college a little bit before career centers were as big as they are now. And so we didn't have a career center to go to. We didn't have career coaches. We didn't have a career plan. So think about being lost on the career process with literally no resources to find the answers. So I encourage you to use the career centers because they are very valuable. So I came out here for grad school and I burned out in grad school because it wasn't really what I wanted to do. I did get my master's degree. And then I was like, I'm not really ready to do this PhD. So what am I going to do? I need a job. And I used my degrees to get a job in academic advising because that was what was the minimum requirement was a master's degree. And so this is important to know that your degrees get you in the door. They didn't care what degrees I had. They just cared that I had a degree and had a master's degree to help with the process.
And the interpersonal skills.
Yes, and
Skills.
absolutely. So, and I did well in the interview, right? So you can't just be like flat and get the job, right? So a lot of the experiences that I had in undergrad, spending my summers volunteering and working on campus, I was a resident assistant. So getting engaged in the university, these were things that showed up on my resume to get me into grad school, but then stayed on my resume to help get me through the interview process because these were skills that I learned. So I became an academic advisor, and I'll be real honest with you all, it wasn't until probably the last year or two that I've started to really get a very stronger understanding of what it is that I want to do. And so I'm 20 years out of college, and it doesn't mean that I have not been successful in those past 20 years, but it means that it's okay if you don't know exactly what you want to do right now for the rest of your life. But it is important to have a direction that you're heading toward and to be very well prepared to get there. And so that's what what we want you to know is spending these last few months while you're here in this place, in this resource where you can go to DC on a trip for 3-4 days without footing the whole cost, to get those experiences and get those skills, because it isn't too late to build your profile up. And it isn't too late to make decisions if you haven't yet.
So you heard Jen's journey, and you see that career is a lifelong journey. You never end, just like education. It's a lifelong journey. You gain skills as you go. So I'll go into my story, and I won't be long with my story. Obviously, from the gray you see, I'm a bit older than Jen. So when I came to IU, the only thing that I knew I wanted to do, well, there were two things. I knew I loved to read. I knew I liked history. But I knew I wanted to do something with human resources. So I came with the idea of getting into Kelly, because that was the only thing I knew that was related to HR was business when I came to IU. I quickly saw that there was another school called the School of Public and Environmental Affairs that focused on the governmental side. That major had what I liked: history, how things came into being with the government, how the government operates, all of those things along with the business principles. So I received my degree, my undergraduate degree, my BS from the School of Public and Environmental Affairs. Now, I utilized the Kelly Business Placement Office. I was wise enough from my early days to hear the message of utilizing the Kelly. So I managed to get into the Kelly Placement Office, get my resume, and get in the pipeline with some companies that I was interested in at the time. I was also a student leader. So I was the president of fraternity. I was active in the campus fraternity leadership structure, and had connections with administrators at the university through that. I also had a mentor that was a PhD student and a professional on campus. So when I started to get engaged as a campus leader, getting involved in the university structure and all that stuff, I really enjoyed that because that was an area of HR that I had no understanding about. But I had an inkling because I understood how government worked and how the interface of an institution as a government entity worked. But I still didn't know there was a pathway there until my senior year, when my mentor said, hey, Vince, you need to think about going into, it was called College Student Personnel Administration then. Now it's called HESA, Higher Education and Student Affairs. I was like, I'll think about it. He said, look, at least submit your application and let me introduce you to some of the people over in the School of Education. So he's my mentor. I followed his advice and I submitted that material, and then I learned more about what it was. And I was like, yeah, this is an interesting route. But I'm interviewing with Procter & Gamble out of Cincinnati. And I know Procter & Gamble is going to give me money right off the bat, right? So I go and I make it to the final stages of the interview. They're wining and dining me in Cincinnati. And they asked me the fatal question: what attracts me to your company? What do I find attractive about their company? Well, my response is, everybody knows Procter & Gamble, right? So I said, your product sells itself. Who doesn't know Pampers? Who doesn't know, all these other day-to-day things? What really attracts me is this community service element that you have with the community. And they were like, I think you need to consider a different field, because you would stay with us for maybe 3 years and then you would be gone, because your interest isn't sales. And then I started reflecting on that. On the ride home, I started thinking about that, and I was like, well, they're right, because what my mentor told me was more in line with where I see myself. So ultimately, to make that long story short, I was accepted into graduate school for College Student Personnel Administration. I saw what that field is. So plug, if you are interested in higher education and working at a university, something that you don't know often, that there's a degree for that. It's a master's degree that positions you to understand the theories and the work of the universities to cultivate college students such as yourself and to advocate for college students. And again, how many universities are across the country or international? IU degree in that field opens the doors to any university. I could leave here. I'm a little older now, so there's going to be some ageism in some places, but I could leave here and go to any university across the country and have a job. So just to let you know, think about those things when you're choosing your future. Now, my degree, I ended up being a director here of the 21st Century Scholars. I held many other roles besides this in campus, from residence life to some elements of counseling to running an LLC, those areas, affirmative action when I first started. So those are opportunities that I wouldn't have known about with my initial degree, undergraduate degree. So take advantage of the mentors, take advantage of the conversations with advisors, take advantage of the career opportunities through the offices to make sure you're following the path that your heart is leading you to, and you have an understanding of the career field that you're interested in.
Alrighty, so academics and beyond. So kind of a self-assessment moment, things to keep on your radar. So at this point, you should feel confident in your academic or career pathway, or confident that it isn't what you want to do, but you know what you want to do, right? Comfortable with time management because it does not go away. I have to manage my time every day, all day. It's what Mr. Isom expects to get my job done. Understand the flow of my motivation. When is my motivation high? When is it low? What impacts my motivation? Because you can have dragging days at work when you don't feel very productive, just like when you don't feel like going to class, but it works a little differently, right? And know how to ask for assistance when needed. This is something that is important and doesn't go away at all. And our ego does often need to be tamed in some ways. And so we put our ego to the side and ask for help. Even if right now you're thinking like, I didn't want to answer that survey because dang it, I don't know what I'm going to do. Ask for help. That's literally what we're here for. And we'll see what we can do, right? But we need you to do that part. So what's up next? Closing out senior year. A lot of this part here is the advising part, and it comes from a lot of the individual questions that I get from you all through email. And so having these meetings are helpful because I really can't, there's hundreds of you all, and I really can't answer each one in an individual meeting and still see my roster of students. So please, for those senior scholars, who couldn't make it this evening, please encourage them to come to the meeting tomorrow. Okay. So a couple things. If you have remaining 21st century funding, but you have finished your degree, like this semester, the courses you're taking, complete your degree. A couple things about that. One, you can't use save the money and get into a graduate school in Indiana and then use that last semester there. It is only for getting a bachelor's degree. Okay. Connected to that, if you don't have any remaining requirements, you can't just take whatever you want to become full-time. Financial aid will not fund that. Okay, so if you have met with your academic advisor, you registered for spring, and you don't have 12 credits minimally of required major, minor, certificate courses, is something that you and your advisor probably talked about, and you're concerned about your scholarship, that's something that we do need to talk about in a one-on-one appointment to work out the details. But keep in mind that you can't be at 9 credits to finish your degree and say, oh, I'm just going to take whatever I want to get to full-time so that I'm a full-time student and get my full tuition and everything. So we need to talk about the particulars of that if that is your situation, okay? If you are graduating, meaning you're finishing up using 21st and you're finishing your degree, you are not held to the April 15th FAFSA deadline because that is a state deadline for 21st century. If you are thinking about graduate school or going to graduate school, you should do the FAFSA anyway, period, point blank. If you're not sure at all, just do the FAFSA. It's only your information because you'll have a bachelor's degree. So you don't need to put any family information in there because you will be an independent student once you finish your bachelor's degree, okay? You do not have to complete 30 credits this academic year because the 30 credits every year is to renew your scholarship. So if this is your 4th year of funding, then there's no renewal of the scholarship next year. And you should be focused on 2 things. 1, being full-time with required major and minor courses, and 2, finishing your degree with the required major and minor courses that make you full-time. Kind of works hand in hand there. Okay.
Jen.
Yes.
But what if I don't have that many classes left for my major? What if I only have 9 that's required for my degree? What do I need to do?
Right. So keep in mind that 21st century scholars, the tuition, the state will pay for those 9 credits. Okay. But if you're not at 12 credits, then you're a part-time student. So that means that your other financial aid, if you receive federal Pell Grants and student loans, will be assessed at the part-time amount. So it won't be the full amount of federal funding that you've been getting. I believe that the covenant is not impacted by that, but that's something that we have to check with Student Central to be sure about each individual case. Okay. So again, if you don't have 12 credits of required major minor courses, you can't just take whatever, but we should talk about what that could mean for your financial aid and if there are any options for your particular situation. Okay.
Which can include adding a major.
Or
add a minor, not a major, I'm sorry, minor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good question. So if you need to extend beyond your 4 years, as I mentioned, it did not take me 4 years, so that happens sometimes. You will be okay. If you need to extend your time beyond your 4 years, unfortunately, there is no 21st century funding available. Okay. Student Central will help you with financial planning and understanding what your options are. Still complete your FAFSA as soon as possible. And we are still here as a program to support you. We're not just about the money. It's not just about the money. We're here as a program to support you as an individual. So, the money is extra. It's a nice extra. But there's ways that you can make this happen. So if you feel like discouraged because 21st is running out, it will look different, but it is possible. And you are so close that you should make that possibility happen. Okay. All right. So connect with us and stay connected. Okay. So if you need to talk to a higher educational professional about guidance, advocacy, mentorship, I'm available. Our staff in our office is available. Andrew Schwartz is our other academic advisor, and we are in the process of hiring a third advisor for a career process. And so we're here. You can make appointments with us on SAS. I know for like finals week, I have mostly drop-ins. So that's a good time if you need to drop in and we touch base and then set up another time to talk if we need to talk longer. Or you can send me an email or Andrew an email.
And if you're interested in talking about just generally your future and planning your future outside of the academic realm, I'm available too. My schedule's tight, but I do see students as well.
Absolutely. And Mr. Isom is one of my mentors. So, to vouch for him. Yeah. So we are on social media. We know a lot of you all don't follow us, but you should because we do have interesting things. We do lots of stories about students and we have our newsletters and opportunities that come through there. So join us on social media so you can keep in contact. And just a visual refresher of going to SAS, and you can search 21st, and myself and Andrew come up. Rebecca is our AmeriCorps Scholar Corps member. So if you do have some very specific scholarship questions, she's also a graduate student in higher education and student affairs. So if you're interested and want to talk to a professional who's more on a peer level, Rebecca is great to start conversation. She was a 21st century scholar at IUP, but she's a scholar. And so she's a really good person to talk to if you have questions that you think might be more relevant at that level. Okay. So we're going to.
And be on the lookout for some of our programming that deals with next steps, grad school, and again, other opportunities to expand your portfolio.
All right, so we're going to head to the Q&A here in just a moment, but I think it's important to have a very specific moment to say farewell. But also, you're about to become an IU alum, right? So congratulations. And welcome, since Mr. Isom and I are both alum, and stay in touch with us, right? We always like to hear from scholars, to know what you're doing, to come back and mentor scholars that are here. We like to have panels to hear about all parts of scholar journeys after they leave IU. So don't forget about us, and we're still here. So I'm going to stop the recording